Welcome back. This is still the conversation. Well, let's move to South Africa, where South Africa's opposition leader, Julius Malema, and 5 other MPs from his Economic Freedom Fighters Party were on Wednesday punished with a 1-month suspension without pay from Parliament. Now, the Parliament's Power and Privileges Committee found them guilty of contempt of Parliament for storming the stage during President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address at the Cape Town City Hall in February. And of course, joining me at this time to shed more light on this particular development is Godrich, Gardee, Head of International Relations and in the EFF, and also South Africa, and Mpumelelo Zikalala, legal practitioner from Durban, South Africa. Of course, thank you so much for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
All right, let me start off with you, of course, Mpumelelo. Do you think the Parliament Committee was too high-handed with the punishment, of the EFF? And also, do you think the EFF really, had a case when they staged that particular protest?
Well, I think before we even get to the sanction, we need to look at the process which was followed. Now, this particular sanction is arrived at when the EFF had walked out, citing a number of things that they needed to do before the actual process started. You can't go into any litigation on any disputed terrain without having the facts that you require or the evidence which are needed. So what the EFF had done was to come with a reasonable ground of saying that we can't continue today. Firstly, there's footage that we need, and there's other information which we require. Linked to that is that the person who's going to take the decision, which is the adjudicator, we have a problem with them because they may have the potential of being biased. They come from a political party. It is clear that they don't have the same views. Even the manner in which is going to be voted within a particular committee is going to be party specific and not the individuals who are going to be making those particular decisions. So it's basically the odds that we are against them in terms of the whole process that could be there. I do not want to call it a kind of report. However, the basic principles of natural justice are not being followed. And the next thing you'll find is a sanction that says you are suspended and you are going to be adopt a whole month's salary. So on that basis, I do not think that the procedure which was followed was fair. I did not think that they've looked at the actual merits of what has actually happened to the case. And that is what we don't know, because if the leader of the EFF came to the city and was a witness, maybe we could shed more light as to the occurrence of the sequence of events on that particular day and what were really the true intentions of them storming onto the stage.
Now, on Monday, the EFF MPs actually refused to participate in the hearings against them after the committee declined their request for postponement. And we also understand that Mr. Malema protested against the appointment of Advocate Anton Kaz as the initiator, in the hearing for racial reasons. Why do you think that is?
Now, you see, whenever a matter needs to be adjudicated, you need to have a level of comfort with the adjudicator is going to be fair and not to be biased in any manner. So when testing whether there will be potential bias or not within the South African context, you don't look at it from an objective perspective. You look at it from a subjective perspective, from a person who's making the application. Now, in this case, the leader of the EFF is saying, I come from a certain political party. The person that you have there as the presiding officer is my rival. The chances of them finding against me are actually high because they do not like me, or there's nothing in which we find in common except for us being in Parliament. In the same way in which any other individual, especially from those from Parliament, would have had a problem if the person who was the presiding officer would have been a person from the EFF. So on those bases, I think the leader of the EFF, Mr. Malema, was quite correct to say, you are not leveling the playing fields when it comes to this particular dispute that we are resolving here. I do not have the trust that the person who's going to be sitting and adjudicating on this matter is going to come to a principled conclusion. Same applies to the committee that is there. You are dealing with a committee of political parties that don't like each other. That's the long and short of it. So the chances of them finding against the leader of the EFF or anyone who is within their opposition is quite high. But what was important, if you put biasness aside, is the process of saying that I want to go into this process having all the tools of trade in which I need in order to defend my name. And if one of those tools of trade is that I must have the full footage and the full evidence or comprehensive evidence so that I'm able to argue my case, unless there's prejudice that has been shown, which would be suffered by Parliament. There was no reason whatsoever in order for the presiding officer to say, let's continue. Remember, they were making this application for the very first time. It is not as if they were given enough time to go and deal with the matter, and then they came back and found more excuses. It's the single attempt for a postponement, and even that particular postponement was not a reasonable time, an unreasonable amount of time that was requested. So on this basis, they've used a very narrow approach when deciding whether this postponement should be granted, and a very harsh approach in deciding that you are going to proceed, not having had the merits or not having had the side of the EFF in this matter.
I mean, the EFF is one party that is known to be confrontational, very outspoken, and sometimes quite radical. I mean, don't you think that sometimes they take it, a bit overboard when it comes to some pressing some of their issues? And at some point, it looks like they seem to cross certain lines. Do you also share that line of thought?
Not really. You see, a person is going to express...
Some have even considered them some sort of political distraction.
Not at all. You remember, what they are doing is voicing their political perspective, as any other party would do. The mere fact that they do it with a bit of vigor compared to other individuals that are there does not necessarily mean that they shouldn't be heard, does not necessarily mean they should be in control. And if they've crossed the line, then what you must do is that you must employ those corrective measures and do the assessment of whether the line has been crossed, and then allow the particular process to come to an end and come to a conclusion. In doing that, make sure that the playing fields are okay. Listen to them and listen to where they are coming from, and then adjudicate on the matter. Now, you can't say you're going to listen to them, and yet you are bringing in a presiding officer that has the potential of being biased. Then the same presiding officer then says, I'm not going to allow you any postponements because I want to proceed with this matter. Obviously, you go into the battleground when the playing field is not level. You are going to lose no matter what good arguments you may come in. A perception is given that at the end of the day, they're not going to suffice or they're going to be found not guilty. So it is within those instances in which maybe it must be looked at. And another thing, no one has ever prescribed as to how political parties are supposed to behave in Parliament, except the rules of Parliament which ought to be followed. So the mere fact that I talk in a soft-spoken voice or I use a radical military voice when I'm speaking, it doesn't matter just as long as my point goes across, and that's the characteristic of that particular political party.
I mean, on the screen right there, you can see, of course, the last time they staged a protest, at the Parliament. There you can see the rowdiness that happened. They even got into scuffle with some security detail and Parliament members. I mean, it still beckons the question, would you say all of this actually represents democracy in South Africa?
If that particular sitting had said, and you had listened to the EFF as to what they were intending when they went into that particular stage, and there was careful scrutinization of what actually took place, as to who attacked who first, were they standing, were they charging towards the president, or was it a matter of sitting, going and sitting on the stage and not moving? That we would have been able to come to that conclusion of saying that, are these particular individuals engaging in violence? There's been a number of instances in which leaders, especially when it comes to petroleum entities, when they go into a stage, there'll be a number of protesters that go into the stage with them and simply stage their protest. They've never been interpreted as being violence. They've never been interpreted as wanting to cause harm to whoever CEO is on that stage, which is why it's important then that every single action in the sequence of events must be scrutinized. And the only way in which you'll be able to do that is give the EFF the footage which is looking for, which has not been tampered with, so that when they go into an arena, you are then able to say, this is the process which was followed. If you look at that video now, the one that I'm watching, you can see that it's individuals with white shirts which are charging towards the EFF. All the EFF has done is they're going to the stage and stand there. Then the question is that particular action an action that can be regarded as attacking the president of South Africa? If the answer is yes, maybe yes, they were justified. But if the answer is no, then we have to look at it in another form, of which protest in South Africa is allowed, and the manner in which people protest is different depending on where you are. That's the assessment that we've missed in order to be able to follow, due to the presiding officer taking a hard stance.
Now, how much of an impact do you think that this will actually have on EFF's political positioning, particularly once the election season kicks off? And how do South Africans view their recent disposition?
Well, we have to think of it this way. If you say the EFF is not allowed to be in parliament for a month, that you are then saying EFF is not supposed to participate in democratic processes of the country for a month. They were not selected or nominated by any other political parties except the people of South Africa. So if the people of South Africa have said, we want you to be in parliament to discuss certain issues, that's exactly what should happen. It can't be that a handful of individuals or a committee is going to decide for the number of voters in which voted for the EFF that your political leaders are not going to participate in this process. If someone has misbehaved in any process that is there, it is up to the presiding officer to say, we are going to punish you as an individual and not any other party that is there. So it must be a process of saying, protect the gist or the intention of the political process which was intended by you participating in parliament at all cost, and make sure that you don't take it away adversely. Because if you say they can't participate for a month and they come back in parliament maybe during the month of February, that's when the parliamentary or the state of the nation debate is being discussed. We're basically saying key individuals of the EFF should not participate in an annual scene-setting event of parliament in which they ought to participate.
All right. I mean, right now we'll be, of course, joined by Godrich Gardee, Head of International Relations in the EFF South Africa, to actually, of course, shed more light on all of this. Godrich, thank you so much for your time. Let me start off straight off. What is your immediate reaction to, of course, the Parliament's verdict to the EFF? Godrich, if you can hear me, we cannot hear you. It appears your device is muted. Can you kindly unmute?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good evening to you, my brother, and greetings to our learned friend Mpumelelo, and to our listeners across Africa. We thank you for this opportunity to bring some clarity on the issues that you will be raising with us. I've listened to the interview and the remarks by our learned friend in the robust questions that we've posed on him. We're ready to talk to you. You may shoot.
All right. Now, what is your immediate reaction? I mean, you are a strong member of the EFF to the recent decision by the Parliament to suspend its leader, that's Julius Malema, and 5 other MPs, from the Senate for a month without pay. What exactly is your immediate reaction?
It is not the first time that the Parliament of South Africa is doing this, and in all instances they have failed dismally, because we'll definitely be approaching the judiciary, the courts of South Africa, and we will make our case heard by the independent judiciary of South Africa, and the court will rule in favor of the EFF, as it has done before on similar instances where in Parliament issued some sanctions for no apparent reasons against the EFF.
But do you think the EFF conducted itself, decently, in pressing a point during the president's address? Of course, where the scuffle happened and they were walked out of the parliament with security. We, of course, showed you that footage earlier. Could there have been a better way to sort of conduct their dissatisfaction on some of the decisions of the president against what we saw on the floor of the parliament that day?
You will agree with me, my brother, that a protest will remain a protest, and a protest is robust by its nature for as long as it is not violent and with armed protesters. Members of Parliament of the Economic Freedom Fighters were unarmed. They were properly searched long before they came into the parliament like all other parliamentarians. And no one was under any threat except that it was a robust protest and a protest, and it remains to be a protest. And you could see that our members are not fighting back. They were there just to protest and raise up their placard against the injustices of the government that is unleashing to our people. There is poverty in South Africa. People are sleeping without a meal. There's no electricity in South Africa. There's high unemployment. There is a high crime rate in South Africa. everything bad and social ills that you can think of. They are only found in South Africa because of a deadbeat president and a ruling party. And that needs a proportionate response, and one of the response is that Parliament is a theatre of the struggle, and it is a protest place, and that is protected by the laws of the Republic and the Constitution.
Now, on Monday, the EFF MPs refused to participate in the hearings against them after the committee declined their request for postponement. Also, Mr. Malema protested against the appointment of Advocate Anton Kaz, as the initiator in the hearing for racial reasons. Would you like to shed more light on this particular scenario? Why did the EFF actually decline a meeting, and of course requested for a postponement? And why did Mr. Malema actually make such a comment?
I think you are very, very, very wrong, my brother. We need to correct you decisively. There was never a racial comment by our president and members of parliament when they were appearing before that committee.
He said, maybe I should read the quote. He said that he cannot be persecuted by a white man.
I think you must take it into the context.
Please enlighten me.
He did not say I cannot be prosecuted. He did not say I cannot be prosecuted by a white man. All he said was that this white man is a great supporter of the Democratic Alliance. This white man has always been a counsel, an attorney, and an advocate and a legal service provider to the Democratic Alliance, which is a racist white political party in South Africa. That is the context within which he said it. You cannot be prosecuted by an attorney or a lawyer and initiator who is actually the legal advisor and representative of your opponent outside the parliament. I hope I have clarified this and you have got it right and you will never again repeat that mistake.
I mean, we just need that clarity. That's why we are having this conversation, right? Anyway, before I let you go. You have got the
clarity. Mr. Gardee is a respectable senior counsel who has always rendered his services to the Democratic Alliance, whose members were sitting in the committee that was going to judge our leaders, and who is in cahoots with the ruling party, and they are our opponents as we approach the May 2024 elections. And you can't be prosecuted by a person who's also a judge in your matter. The committee has actually reduced itself into a police, a judge, and a jailer.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Godrich Gardee, Head of International Relations in the EFF, South Africa, and also Mpumelelo Zikalala, a legal practitioner from Durban, South Africa. Thank you so much once again, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
All right. And of course, that's a wrap on the show today. My name is Dapo Adegboye. Bye for now.